Order the meeting of the Plan Board for Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. Ms. McMullen, can you read the roll, please?
Yes. Robert Ackerman.
That's you.
Bob.
Just turning on.
Yeah, he doesn't
He's
have ears
here.
on yet. Yeah.
He's here. Jamie Bell.
Here.
Tina Certain is absent. Nicholas Hill.
Here.
Robert Murmer.
Here.
Joshua Nay.
Here.
Jason Sanchez.
Here.
Stephanie Sutton. All right, you have a quorum.
That is so cute. Sorry, I was looking at a cute baby. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda as currently stands?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, also. I think we missed a couple ayes.
Aye.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, fair enough. Motion passes. Can you read the first item on the agenda in?
Public comment.
Oh, I guess we do have public comment, right. If anybody here has a public comment about an item that's not on the agenda, I see a lot of heads shaking. No, I don't think, not even a lot of heads, because there's really not that many heads in the crowd. I assume nobody wants to speak on just general stuff, so. So moving right along, let's get right to the first item on the agenda.
Alrighty, item 2025-301, the not land use amendment, LD 2511, presented by Nathaniel Chan.
I was about to say, Ari's looking different.
Hi, good evening, Chair Sanchez, members of the City Plan Board. My name is Ari Rabinovich. No, Ari put together a nice script for me to read off of for his item. He can't be here tonight, but I'm presenting this item on behalf of Ari Rabinovich, who created this presentation and staff report for you tonight. This is a joint presentation for items LD 25 -000010 and LD 25-000011, which are land use change and rezoning for portions of two parcels around the Depot Park area for the not climbing gym. So the parcel numbers for this land use change and rezoning are up on the screen. The land use change and rezoning are at the site of a former RTS, City of Gainesville RTS hub adjacent to Depot Park. It's that building that's sort of adjacent to the excess parking that Depot Park has. Along Southeast 10th Avenue and Southeast 4th Street. The project area for this is about 5.81 acres. The current land use is public and institutional facilities, PF, and the current zoning is public services and operations, PS. And the applicant is NV5, and the request is to change the land use to industrial, so IND, and the zoning to limited industrial, I1. So here's a map indicating the existing land use of PF. So you can see it's portions of two parcels. I don't know if that's super clear on this map, but there that is. The proposed land use, again, is industrial. The category identifies areas suitable for various manufacturing, distribution, wholesaling, and compatible or ancillary uses. Intensity is regulated by a height limit of 5 stories or less. And here's the existing zoning. So you can see Depot Park PS zoning, and surrounding is both I1, which is limited industrial, and I2 general industrial in the pink there. So anything else you wanted me to add here? Don't think so. So here's a table showing the abutting parcels. So again, just generally, this area is Depot Park being primarily public service zoning with limited and general industrial in the area as well. The proposed zoning I1 is consistent with the active uses in the area. Nearby development is commercial and industrial, which includes warehousing, manufacturing, wholesaling, distribution, and outdoor recreation with Depot Park. About 168 acres in the immediate area are zoned either I1 or I2. and about 177 acres are designated industrial in this area. Staff reviewed the proposal to change the future land use from PF to industrial at the site and found that it meets the review criteria for future land use change in section 30-3.13 of the Land Development Code. The new land use designation would fit within the industrial character of the area and poses no immediate impacts to housing, sensitive environmental features, transportation, or sprawl. The change improves the city's capacity to service industrial and recreational businesses through the strengthening of an existing industrial corridor. The goals, objectives, and policies of the future land use element within the comprehensive plan are supportive of this change, and further details are in the staff report. This item was also reviewed for meeting the rezoning review criteria, and staff has determined that it meets the requirements of 30-3.14 of the Land Development Code. The proposed zoning designation of I-1 is consistent with the surrounding area and has consistent uses with the other uses in the area. The proposed designation fits within existing plans surrounding sustainable industrial growth, efficient land use, and employment needs through the concentration of this use type, particularly due to its proximity to the urban core. This zoning designation supports additional recreation uses, which is compatible with the continually increasing recreational character of this area due to proximity to Depot Park and various mixed-use paths. The goals, objectives, and policies of the future land use element outlined in the staff report are also supportive of this rezoning. And with that, staff recommendation is for approval of LD 2510 and LD 2511. The applicant is here supposedly with a presentation. I'm available for any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Chan. Ms. Sutton.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry I was 2 minutes late, so you may have mentioned this earlier. But did you all consider any other categories for this property, or was anything else discussed like at the first step meeting? Because there's a general discussion going on at the city about South Main going away from industrial. So I just was curious what the conversation and what the thought was here.
Yeah, so as part of the land use change and rezoning process, the first step meeting is required. At the first step meeting, we did discuss the possibility of transect zoning here, which of course has higher design standards and different allowable uses. Ultimately, that was not supportive because there's some requirements with needing enough area to be able to rezone to transect zones.
That
And
shouldn't be in the code anymore.
oh, that's on the code anymore?
Yep.
Brittany was in the first step meeting.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit more about that. So the general feedback, it was asked about by the agent about transect zoning. The general feedback was that is going to be part of a larger conversation that the city commission will discuss at some point in the near future, and kind of already has been starting to discuss it. But it wasn't recommended by staff to do just this piece. It was recommended to look at that more as like a larger effort rather than just a single property.
Okay, follow-up question. If the city does decide to do something, I know that like usually private initiated applications for land use and zoning can only happen like once a year. If the city decides to do something with this property within a year, is that going to be a problem?
I don't think so. I don't know of that provision. I don't think I've seen that in the code about like only being able to do it once a year or whatever, but.
I think it's only if it's like denied or there's a clause
Right,
for
sort
if
of
it
a
can come back.
process for bringing it back, but as far as what the city is discussing, I do think those would be city initiated, so I don't think it would cause a problem with this. It's not anticipated to.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Nay?
Yeah, I had that question too about like having it be more flexible zoning, because I thought when the city sold this to them, there was talk about housing being part of this project. Is that not being talked about anymore, or?
We haven't heard of housing being brought up in these discussions about the rezoning or anything like that. The applicant might be able to provide more info about what's proposed.
Yeah,
But we don't have any associated development plans or anything at this point.
Yeah, because I think they talked about townhouses or something, and as part of this project, maybe like 30. I don't remember the exact number, but I remember when they went to talk to the city commission about it. I don't know. I just like limiting it to just industrial. Just I don't know. Seems like we should have something more flexible here.
Yeah, the applicant might be able to talk more about that. We haven't discussed any housing we didn't discuss any housing in the first step with this or in the discussion of this petition, I don't believe. But probably a good question for the applicant.
Maybe wait. Is the applicant doing a presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Fantastic. Let's have the applicant give the presentation.
Good job, Ari.
Thank you.
Looking good, Ari.
Yeah.
Really dig the new look.
Yeah, I'm taller, dude.
You working out?
If not, you just scroll left and right.
Yeah, there's a blind image.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to try it, but yeah.
All right, there we go. Hi, good evening. I'm Margot Maurer, AICP with NV5, and I'm excited to be here on behalf of the Not Climbing Gym. Tonight, we are requesting a change, small-scale land use change and rezoning from public facilities and public services to industrial land use and limited industrial zoning. The requested land use and zoning will both allow active recreation uses, and the applicant or the Not Climbing Gym desires to redevelop the site for purpose of relocating and expanding their existing business, which is an indoor climbing or bouldering facility. Adaptive reuse of the site will also bring new additional opportunities for active recreation in an already urbanized and developed area of the city on a former RTS maintenance and operations facility. So as you can see here, the overall context, it's a former RTS maintenance and operations facility. It's located proximal, close to the city's urban core in a developed area. The surrounding context area does include a significant amount of commercial and industrial uses. So aerial map shows there's about overall it's about 5.81 acre site. It occupies a key perimeter location along the perimeter along Depot Park area, and so this is redevelopment would be an appropriate use to improve the pedestrian realm and just overall experience in that area. It would, through activating the site, we would improve public safety as well, because the site is now currently an abandoned former industrial use site. So here's the conceptual rendering of one aspect that the applicant's considering, which is their indoor bouldering or climbing wall. This would be an Olympic-sized climbing wall. And as you can see, there will also be opportunity for other active recreation uses, but that will be addressed, of course, later on during site and development plan review. Okay, so we've gone through the requisite process, beginning with a first step meeting in 2024, and then in December, the City Commission voted to unanimously approve the disposition of the city, or the property from the city to the applicant. We conducted our neighborhood workshop, submitted our applications, and which have undergone a staff review, and that finds us here at City Plan Board. So staff have deemed the application sufficient for public hearing. Okay, so here's existing future land use, public facilities, requesting, and zoning, requesting industrial land use, which as you can see is surrounded by industrial land use, and I-1 zoning. We have some of the surrounding properties labeled here, and as I mentioned, they're largely commercial and industrial in use, in addition to public service, a city-owned Depot Park.
This staff has reviewed our applications and found them to be consistent with the City of Gainesville's comprehensive plan, goals, objectives, and policies. Our application materials, this PowerPoint, our expert testimony support that, as well as for the land development code criteria for staff reviewing a rezoning. So found consistent with Gainesville Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code, staff recommends approval. And applicant respectfully requests the Plan Board recommend approval to City Commission. Thank you. And I'm available to answer any questions as well, and the applicant is here as well.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for the applicant? Mr. Hill?
I just have one, and this may be more directed at staff. You know, if the goal of the city, you know, long-term is to make this corridor, Main Street, more urban in nature in its design, what are the provisions in the industrial zoning category in terms of where that building, that box can be located? Because it's, you know, it looks really nice in the rendering. I'm just curious, can it be set very far back from the street, or what is the requirement surrounding that, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I can tell you the setbacks and things in just a moment. But I can tell you in general, that zoning district is within the mixed use and non-residential category within the different zoning designations. There are some provisions regarding the location of parking. So any development can't have all of its parking in front of the structure. The requirement is no more than 50% of the parking located between the front facade and the primary abutting street. So it has some design requirements, definitely not as much as the transect zones do. The required setbacks, minimum of 25 feet in the front. There's not any build to lines like there are in the transect zones. So it could be set back, it has to be set back a minimum of 25 feet. There can be some parking in the front, but it does require some to be on the side and the rear. So there's some requirements, but not as stringent as transect zoning.
Yeah, we're not at the design stage yet, and, you know, I think this is a great project. Just, it is, if we are trying to make a more urban Main Street, certainly, you know, understanding where that parking is going to be when that time comes, or if we decide to, you know, tackle that as part of the rezoning, because we don't even want that possibility to happen. I think it's a good question. You know,
Yeah.
This is a really great project, though. I hate for the location of parking to be the big issue with it.
Thank you. Ms. Sutton?
Yeah, in general, I support this use going there. I'm just not in love with the industrial zoning there for a number of reasons. And I haven't found it in the code, but I believe there's something about some sidewalk exceptions with industrial zoning, or maybe it's just industrial uses. Like, this is definitely a location that's going to need sidewalks, and so I hate to have a zoning that doesn't require it. Do you have that front of mind?
Yeah,
I just
so-
looked quickly and couldn't find it.
Yes, so that is the exemption. It's basically an exemption, but it's in the comprehensive plan for the industrial land use. So yeah, you're right. That is kind of the one area in the code that doesn't require installation of new sidewalks, is if it's in an industrial land use.
Yeah, so I just, for that reason and just the design standards and everything else, I understand that they're trying primarily to reuse the existing building, but for just any kind of redevelopment standards that, like, even upgrading the building and what the landscaping would have to be, like, industrial has the lowest requirements of any zoning category, and I don't think that is the vision for this part of the city moving
Right.
forward.
Well, I will say, the applicant can also provide more detail, but their intent is to redevelop the site so it's conducive to people mingling between uses, activities. You know, they also, they'd like to have a fitness facility there with also some outdoor, like, not food truck, but outdoor small food vendors. And so you also have large green areas to congregate. You know, there's a lot of interplay with Depot Park. That is why this is also a perfect location. And the industrial, it's surrounded by industrial land use and zoning, so it kind of represents a, you know, logical nexus of, you know,
I understand that they
but-
probably
oh, yeah.
have this positive vision, but the industrial land use and zoning does not require that. And
understand.
I understand that they're invested in doing this, but things change, the economy changes, deals don't go through, and but the zoning and the land use remain.
I guess I
So-
understand.
I'm interested in having a zoning and a land use that gets the city what we're looking for on South Main Street. I support the knot. My husband's a member. I would love to see this. I've been to some great climbing gyms in other cities. I love this idea. Like, I will bring my family there, but I don't love this land use and zoning application.
And like,
So,
Mr. Ackerman.
I'm just going to chime in on the same problem. This property is adjacent to the Depot Park, which is obviously becoming kind of the central park of Gainesville. I would really hate to see these two parcels adjacent to Depot Park become a sea of parking
right.
or some other genuine industrial use. And that, I tend to agree with Ms. Sutton about this, is that it would be better if we found a classification that's more conducive to its adjacency to Depot Park. I also am in favor of the concept. I'm in favor of climbing gyms and all the things you talked about. I'm just concerned that if, as she says,
Right.
if the knot gets sold or if it goes out of business, or we're stuck with this zoning classification, and it's for the benefit of whoever ends up in possession of that property. So it's not that I think anybody here doesn't like the project itself. I think the concern is a little more long-term.
Is there anything that the applicant's planning to use the property for that wouldn't fit? I know, like, the knot, I think, is currently U6 in the current location. Is there anything that you are planning to do there that wouldn't fit, like a U6, U7, U8, you know, et cetera, zoning category, and would require, you know, the industrial zoning category that you're seeking? You're welcome to come up if you've got the answer, yeah. I think you might be best equipped to answer it than anybody
Yeah,
else.
I mean, and I'm happy to, you know, kind of talk about this. I mean, I'd love to, you know, even chat and try and figure out and work with the zoning that would make sense for this too. I you know, totally understand and respect both of these points about a longer term vision for this property. To me, it seemed like going with industrial right here was just, you know, kind of put it all together, and it fit with what was going on there. So what was your question?
Oh, is there anything that you were planning to do with the property that you wouldn't be able to accomplish under the current, like you're currently under U6 in your current location?
If
Is
I
there
remember-
something under industrial that you can do that you can't do under?
If I remember, I think outdoor recreation is not allowed under a U6. It was something unusual like that, where like one of our indoor or outdoor recreation was not allowed under a U6 or U7 zoning.
That is correct. The outdoor recreation is
U6.
outdoor recreation is not allowed in U6.
And
And I think part of staff's perspective was it's difficult to discuss, you know, if it were to be a transect zone, which one would it be? Because we haven't had the overall discussion about like the overall area and kind of like where the transect zoning will start in terms of the different levels, and there's supposed to be a logical extension of other transect zones and kind of tapering down and up. So it's hard to kind of put it in, you know, what transect zone would be most appropriate, given that it's our current all industrial.
Is it the view of staff in the city that that perhaps we would work our way down Main Street first in terms of making those transects and then hitting this parcel? Because this parcel technically isn't off of Main Street, but it's off the Hawthorne Trail and I believe 10th, right? I'm not privy to staff discussions and planning about all this stuff, but is that sort of what you guys are thinking?
So we don't know yet is kind of the short answer. So, as you probably have heard, or maybe some of you have heard, the commission started discussing, or requested that staff essentially look into rezoning certain areas of the city as part of the larger economic development framework and efforts. So focusing on like the southwest side of town and Main Street. How far that'll go, I don't know yet. We haven't had any specific discussions. We're still looking at all the options for how that's going to be approached. You know, who's all going to be involved in the discussions. I haven't been a part of any specific discussions in this area,
Okay.
so I just don't know. So that was kind of the thought, since this is coming in right now, since I don't really know where that conversation is going to go. It's
Right.
kind of hard to pin down a specific transit zone.
It seems like we run the risk of holding up this project, which I think all of us on the board agree is a pretty solid project, for the sake of, you know, the city's plans, whatever they may be for South Main, which truthfully have been long ongoing. And if you wait for the city to make a plan and execute it, you will certainly go out of business, probably die. It takes a while for these things to happen. So I'm sympathetic to that.
I mean, you could suggest a category potentially, or.
Well, I mean, I'm also, you know, it's a good point that you can't do outdoor recreation in U6. That's incredibly stupid.
Yeah, you can in U7 though.
You can in U7,
Anything up
yeah.
From U7.
It's
Okay.
that's one of the things I think we're looking at.
And they
is-
require sidewalks.
right.
Yeah, so when we discussed the U8s as an application, it seemed like it would be, you know, it kind of really changed some of the value of the project or some of the property, or just like, you know, because we weren't looking at focusing on housing, it was really going to change the economics and what other people might be doing there for, you know, for us on it. So it was kind of it seemed like, you know, I really wanted to signal that my goal is not building housing on this property. My goal is building an amenity that theoretically can start drawing housing, that as soon as we get an amenity like this, more housing will start looking in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm totally open to all sorts of changes and working with the city on the zoning too. So.
Sorry, Ms. Sutton, did you have another comment?
I was just gonna say, U7 and up all allow the outdoor recreation.
Yeah. and you-
So,
you
I
do-
mean,
You own the land, so why would it, like,
yeah.
it's not gonna radically change that.
Okay.
Mr. Hill.
Just out of curiosity, was stipulation for you getting this land, was it adaptive reuse? Was that a requirement at all? Was that just a measure to hopefully save some costs?
That and the building, the blue building that's on there has a kind of a wide 75-foot span in between the edges of the building. So it lets us be very creative. There's not a lot of buildings that don't have central columns in there. So the second I saw that building, I was like, oh no, this is, you know, I spent a long time looking for even space after the old climbing gym closed down.
Mm-hmm.
We spent a lot of time looking around the city for space, and I think this would arguably the best building in the city for something like a climbing gym like this. So that part's very unique. And I don't know, when I look at it, I want to continue some of these things that people see in Gainesville. You know, if you look at one of the other buildings on there that kind of looks like that was the old change station.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at it, I just look and I just see this looks like a little bit of a restaurant, a patio where people can sit and come eat. And you know, for the parking, we were really hoping that the city will, if we're doing all this work right here, that the city will continue and maintain a lot of that parking that is right there adjacent to Depot Park, and they'll, kind of tear down that fence and make more of a continuity and a transition along that from Depot Park into this property.
And I get that, it seems like there's been a lot of conversations in the city about having Main Street, certainly continue that walkable urban corridor feel. I guess part of my question too is, is there any planning framework for that written down in a document somewhere? Like these people, right, you guys came to staff and you guys negotiated land use and zoning that made sense, you know, at least according to the future land use map and zoning map in terms of consistency with that existing fabric. And then, you know, we are liable, or we are potentially looking at denying them, or at least not recommending them for approval because there is something that has not yet been written down. So I'm just a little concerned about that. It's something that we definitely want to do, like, as the plan board, to encourage walkability, especially on our main street, but should they be discouraged or penalized for that if it's not written down anywhere, that there is a main street plan that, you know, that they can't do that? And I was just thinking about the site itself. Can you go to the map of the site, someone?
I think I'd argue too, it is not technically on Main Street.
Yeah, and I guess that was part of my thing. It's, you know, the frontage, it's almost like two kind of different properties that are split, right?
Yeah, that's probably,
Yeah, so you can see where the subject property is relative to Main Street. And there's not a significant amount of frontage
Yeah.
either.
It is within our purview to recommend for denial. It just seemed like they've been let down this route, you know, and if they're, and staff, please correct me if I'm wrong, if there's nothing written down that this is the city's plan and this is what we want here, like the comprehensive plan or the land development code, or any other plan, I just struggled to come to that conclusion myself, but I'm excited to see if I'm mistaken from someone more experienced with the city.
I think that's a question for Ms. McMullen, if there's something written down.
I would say the current application is supported by the currently adopted comprehensive plan and land development code. I don't know of anything specifically. I mean, there's probably some general language in the comprehensive plan about encouraging walkability and things like that. In terms of what the city has most recently been discussing, I don't think it's anything official aside from they want us to look into it.
Not that that's the sole basis for our decision making,
Right.
but, you know, it helps inform mine what's already been agreed upon by the community in our plan, which is currently being updated as we speak. I would like some thoughts on that, so.
Ms. Sutton?
Yeah, I would just say, as far as that goes, I mean, within the last couple of weeks, the commission has voted to explore this idea as part of their economic development framework. So it's something that they are definitely, you know, looking to act on. Has it been implemented into any policy or documents yet? No. But it's kind of a current action item for the city. My biggest problem is that industrial land use and zoning are the one category in the entire city that you do not have to have sidewalks. And this is adjacent to the city's premier park.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if you're not on Main Street, like, I cannot support giving you a land use and zoning that doesn't require sidewalks. And you can tell me you're gonna put pedestrian paths all over the place, but that means nothing at this point, right? So I cannot support that. I can't.
Dr. Murmur?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So currently, this is mostly surrounded by the I-1,
Yes.
correct? So I feel like the conversation that we're having up here is assuming that this board and the city commission is going to rezone everything currently around there. And like Nick just mentioned, we don't have anything in writing saying that that's the direction we're heading. And there are a lot of discussions with economic development going on right now. I know some of it does include this part of town, but, you know, most of where that's heading as of now, again, because no policy has been voted on, is focusing economic development on 8th and Waldo, which is going to be a very expensive project. So I feel like if this city commission or a future city commission is heading towards wanting to do something specific and concrete, not just having general notions, but concrete in this area, similar to like what they did with the power district, that's a long way. It's a long way off. So I think we're sort of putting the cart before the horse if we deny this future land use change and rezoning because we're assuming that we know what transect we're going to want to rezone everything around it to. Like, I get that we have nice visions and we want, everybody has their ideal future city. But right now, this is an industrial area. And they're asking for industrial rezoning, and I think it's a good project, and I'm up on it.
Thank you, Dr. Murmur. Ms. Bell?
Thank you. And I admittedly probably have the least amount of zoning and experience on the board, so I'm coming from a little bit of a different perspective, but I'm not fully understanding the adamant, like, disapproval of this project due to the lack of a requirement of sidewalks when there is almost an insignificant amount of frontage or anything on this property. It's immediately adjacent to the multi-use trail because it's the Hawthorne Trail right there. There is a sidewalk right next to the street that's bisecting the two parcels, and then it doesn't have frontage on the other side except for the access road from Veach or Vate Street or however you say that street's name. And so I'm not seeing a problem with a lack of access to this property, considering it is adjacent to Depot where there is a lot of sidewalk and accessibility. And so I'm not seeing how there would be a limit to walkability of how this is being developed, especially with the applicant's vision. And I understand that you could go out of business tomorrow and this falls apart and someone else buys it and puts a warehouse and we're done. But there's another gym right next door to this, and like I could totally see this fitting in with both the applicant's vision and the city's vision. And like Dr. Murmur and others were saying, there's nothing in writing, there's no set plan, and I don't think it's within our purview to deny this application based on a verbal idea that's been expressed at the commission and not a written adopted plan. And so that being said, given the current code and the staff report and all the things that we are asked to evaluate as a plan board, I think this is in line with all of the requirements that we are supposed to be evaluating. And so that plus its location, I don't actually see the issue with the lack of mandatory sidewalks personally, and I think it would be odd to stick a transect zone in the middle of all this existing industrial. And there's, like the applicant was saying, there's not a current plan to stick housing right in the middle of there. I kind of like his idea of if you build it, they will come, as opposed to the other way around. So I'm in favor of the project as presented, and I think if the city has a bigger vision for like growing and adjusting this whole area, then the city can work on a blanket zoning or land use change that accommodates this use and the vision for future uses. And as our staff liaison was saying, that if it's less than a year from now, it shouldn't be a problem because it'll be initiated by the city instead of a private applicant. So if the city wants to change it, that's cool. They can just change it, and either this facility will be grandfathered in, or it'll be bought by someone else who has to meet the new standards. Like I'm just not seeing the anguish over this particular zoning, and I think it's a good project. So I'm kind of in line with what Dr. Murmur was saying.
And if you don't mind, maybe some additional context that might help.
Could you just come this whole thing's actually recorded? Like people
Yeah,
watch this on
yeah,
TV, and so
sorry.
you wanna get
No,
the-
totally understand. Thank you. And I might add just a little bit of additional context for this. Within the terms of the deal right now, we are going to be obliged to maintain operations of the business for the next 10 years. Otherwise, if at any point that doesn't happen, then the property goes back to the city. So the city would still have control over this if that makes anybody more comfortable with it. But
Thank you for that context. Yeah, it's very helpful. Ms. Sutton?
I appreciate that information. I think that is helpful. But in making long-term land use and zoning decisions for the city, I think we should all take a look at all of the allowable uses in the zoning and the land use that we're looking at. So should this deal fall apart for some reason, you know, financing doesn't happen, even if it reverts to the city, it now has industrial zoning on it. It doesn't go back to public services at that point. We would be allowing a waste management facility by right, a warehouse or distribution center by right, all kinds of vehicular uses, vehicular sales, vehicular rental, vehicular repair, truck or bus terminal or maintenance facility, all by right, all right next to Depot Park. I don't believe that industrial zoning belongs next to Depot Park. I don't think that industrial uses belong next to Depot Park. I'm very excited about the Not Climbing Gym potentially going there. I would like to see a zoning that represents more urban, it's a shame that U6 doesn't have outdoor recreation right now. We've been talking about expanding some of the uses in transect zones. It doesn't even have to be a transect zone to me. If it was the old school MU1 or something, even business, BUS, whatever we can find, I just don't like the idea of these industrial uses being right next to Depot Park. I take my kids there all the time. Do I want to walk through a waste transfer facility? No. But that's the decision that we're making. When we're applying land use and zoning, we don't have a development plan in front of us. This is the decision we're making. What uses should be allowed on this property? And I understand we have an interested party with an intent right now. We've thought that something was going to happen with a number of developers on Lot 10 for a long time, and nothing has happened. So I really hope everything works out perfectly for you and this comes about in the next year. But I can't have faith in that. I'd like a zoning that allows the type of uses that I believe belong next to this park. I'm sorry. The sidewalks is a piece of it, but the allowable uses is a big piece of it too. Industrial does not belong next to Depot Park.
Well, so my understanding is that if the NOD is not able to fulfill their contractual obligations within 10 years, the land reverts back to the city. And so under those circumstances, it would be up to the city how the city would want to utilize that property, even though the land use and zoning would be on the property. If the city did not desire to put a waste management facility on there, I would think that that probably would not be their prerogative to pursue. And so I understand it at face, it doesn't sound appealing necessarily, or it sounds like there's a lot of uncertainty, but I do think that there are some safeguards that would help protect from that, or from some of the concerns you expressed. But
Mr. Nay.
I can't say it as eloquently as Stephanie, but I also don't support this. I want more flexible zoning. I want it to be, it can become something else if you guys end up selling the property. If something else happens here, you can't have a waste management facility, We can't predict what's going to happen in the future, and I would rather it adhere to our guidelines about sidewalks, about all the things that we want to see in these areas in this part of the city. So that's how I feel.
thank you both for your comments.
Dr. Murmur.
Yeah, again, I respect the concern about the sidewalks and about having industrial uses next to Depot Park, but again, right now, we don't know where the city's gonna wanna go in this area, in this specific area. And right now, it is zoned industrial, and they're just asking for what the surrounding properties have. So I move to accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
I think technically we're supposed to have public comment, but I don't know that anybody's going to be here to speak
Yeah, I
on
was
that.
curious about that.
I could just put it out there really quick before,
Yeah.
and then you can make a motion if you'd like. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this that hasn't already presented to us? I take it that's going to happen. Okay, back to the board.
Move to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
It's 4-3. It's a tight vote, but it passes. Was that there's two items, so,
Like I said,
yeah.
that was for future land use, so also move to approve staff's recommendation on rezoning.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No,
Another 4-3 vote. Thank you very much. Ms. McMullen, if you can read the next item into the agenda, please.
Yes, 2025-395 Water Supply Facilities Work Plan LD 2544, presented by Nathaniel Chan.
You sure that's Nate or Ari?
I think it's Nate this time.
Okay.
Do a little hat switch if you want. Good evening, Chair Sanchez, members of the City Plan Board. My name is Nathaniel Chan. I'm a planner for the City of Gainesville, Department of Sustainable Development. This is a comprehensive plan amendment to revise a couple objectives and policies in the comprehensive plan related to the joint Alachua County and City of Gainesville Water Supply Facilities Work Plan. I also have Rick Hutton here in the audience to help with some technical questions should you have them. So Florida statutes establish requirements for local governments regarding water supply planning. So the City of Gainesville, Alachua County, Gainesville Regional Utilities, and the St. Johns River Water Management District all collaborated on this document for water supply planning. I'll talk a little bit about what that is. So this is a comprehensive plan amendment. So city initiated amendments to the comprehensive plan, and these are changes to 3 elements of the comprehensive plan: conservation, open space, and groundwater recharge element, potable water and wastewater element, and the intergovernmental coordination element. And essentially they incorporate by reference the joint water supply facilities work plan as required by Florida statutes. So a little bit of background on this in Florida statute just generally. In 2005, the Florida legislature added requirements for water supply planning to Florida statutes related to growth management. And so the Swanee River and St. Johns River Water Management Districts adopted the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan in January of 2017. And subsequently, the city and the county adopted the first joint Alachua County, City of Gainesville Water Supply Facilities Work Plan in 2018. And that is because Florida statutes require local governments to prepare and adopt a water supply facilities work plan into their comp plan within 18 months. And so there was an update to the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan in 2023. And we are here today to update the water supply facilities work plan and change policies and a couple objectives in the comprehensive plan as a result. So here is the North Florida Regional Water Supply Planning area. As you can see, Alachua County and Gainesville are a sort of small portion of this larger area, which includes many surrounding counties and municipalities. I'm also showing here that GRU is the main water supplier in Gainesville and Alachua County. So you can see here GRU water mains in blue. You can kind of see the urban cluster and Gainesville city limits as well on this map. So the joint facilities plan was originally created in 2017 and adopted water supply and water conservation projects. If you're here long enough, Florence Buaku worked on the first joint Alachua County, City of Gainesville Water Supply Facilities Work Plan. It's a mouthful. And so minor updates were made to the 2025 Joint Facilities Plan, including updated population projections and water use projections. Alachua County and GRU will continue to implement water conservation projects to reduce demand. And GRU will construct capital projects for alternative water supply. So here are the proposed comprehensive plan amendments. So I'll call attention to policy 1.1.4, which essentially just adopts the joint Alachua County, City of Gainesville Water Supply Facilities Work Plan by reference. And there are other similar changes here to the potable water and wastewater element, and objective 1.5 of that element as well. All of these are detailed in your staff report, and I don't think there's anything else I wanted to mention on those, but staff recommends approval of LD 25-000044 Water Supply Facilities Work Plan. At their meeting last night, the Alachua County Local Planning Commission approved the comprehensive plan amendments to their comprehensive plan related to the Water Supply Facilities Work Plan. And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chan. Ms. Bell?
It's not a question. I was just gonna say, my company does a lot of work for GRU, so in like an abundance of caution, I think I should recuse myself from voting on this. It's like not super applicable. We do a lot of wastewater work for GRU and reclaim water work, and so I just feel like, I don't know, to be like wildly above board, I should recuse myself from voting on this.
Sure. I mean, I'm not the one to make the call on whether, like, I don't know your exact connection to this.
Well, I manage the water wastewater group at Jones Edmonds, and we do a lot of work for GRU wastewater and reclaim water.
Fair enough,
So
then.
it's like there's not like a direct connection, but it's like proximal enough that I'm like, meh.
Yeah, no, I appreciate not wanting even the appearance of a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
FYI. Sure. Thank you.
In the future, the easy way to figure this out is to call Sean McDermott, City Attorney's Office, and see if you qualify for recusal.
I didn't even think about it until sitting here and like.
Yeah, because normally you'd have to fill out a form.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
My brain is still in baby mode. Sorry.
It happens.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board for Mr. Chan? Seeing none.
If it doesn't start raining, are we gonna all run out of water?
That unfortunately is not contemplated in this plan. So,
Right.
We're probably not even allowed to contemplate that.
Would you qualify that as a change in climate, Bob?
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
I want to live.
There's no public, so I'm assuming there's no public comment. So we'll bring it back to the board for comment or a motion. Let's not all speak at once.
Motion, oop, Bob, you want to take it?
No.
Okay.
I'm just trying to move things along.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion to approve petition LD 2544, Water Supply Facilities Work Plan amendments to the comprehensive plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, so it passes. Congratulations, we have water.
Actually, we just have an amendment.
I know. We don't have
Policies.
water. We could be worse. We could be Arizona. They have much less water than we do.
We could be Lake City.
That's true. Again, there's no members of the public, so I assume that there will be no public comment. Is there any member comment? Anybody on the board want to talk about life or board issues?
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, he had a 7:30 thing. He was like, yeah.
I will not be here next month, so if anyone else happens to be traveling at the same time, you may just need to double check on a quorum. I don't know if anyone else has plans to miss.
I'm
this
here
month.
next month. I'm not here in July. Actually, am I here next month? Yeah, I'm here next month. I did want to check with our friends in the city about, we've given you guys a lot of stuff the last few months. How are we looking here?
Yeah, so the kind of general feedback on that. So we started talking about, it was mentioned throughout conversations tonight about recent discussions from the city commission about rezonings with the economic development framework and things like that. So we are considering that in addition to the different asks from the plan board recently. So last month you talked about kind of reprioritizing the way that those code changes or potential code changes are looked at, kind of in a couple larger general categories and looking at them by use. So we definitely, took a lot of notes on that. discussion, have a pretty good idea of what y'all are looking for. Generally, right now, since the commission just made that motion the past couple of weeks about the economic development plan, we're trying to put it all together and formulate how it's all going to be done over the next few months. So there should be kind of a more definitive answer hopefully by the next meeting. But we're trying to look at it as holistically as possible to make the best use of everyone's resources, essentially.
Great.
So I can tell you next month in June, we will be bringing, or I guess with the Department of Transportation, they've been working on a revised mobility plan. They've got to update, make some changes to the comprehensive plan to support that. So we'll have that item on next month's agenda. And then in August, you should be seeing the draft of the comprehensive plan update. So hopefully by next month, we'll have kind of more concrete answer on how all the other stuff is going to fall into line with those things.
Great. It's my hope that by amending allowed uses and being a lot more flexible in what we allow across the board, it might make the job of rezoning certain areas a little easier too.
Yeah, I mean, I think luckily the two different efforts seem to really be aligning, and they both can really help each other. And like you mentioned, I think too, with just allowing more uses, that'll make the whole conversation easier, hopefully. So
Great.
I think it's all aligning pretty well. It's just a matter of figuring out how to organize and do it all over the next few months.
Fantastic. When is our next meeting, by the way?
June 26th, I believe.
June 26th. Okay. So the next meeting date, June 26th, 2025. And with that, this meeting of the Plan Board is adjourned.